This week's sworn testimony, internal emails, and text messages excerpted in a new court filing lay bare the hypocrisy of Fox News talent and its executives, as seen in the $1.6 billion defamation suit against Fox by Dominion Voting Systems. They knew the 2020 election conspiracy theories airing on their network were bogus. But despite notification and warning from Dominion, a manufacturer of voting machines, being blamed in some of those conspiracies, they kept giving the stories oxygen. Really crazy stuff, wrote the man at the top, Rupert Murdoch. Sean Hannity said Rudy Giuliani was, quote, acting like an insane person, to which Laura Ingraham concurred, such an idiot. Tucker Carlson referred to Donald Trump as a demonic force. Brett Baer correctly noted there is no evidence of fraud. Lou Dobbs and Maria Bartiromo were perhaps the worst offenders. Each gave air to Trump lawyer Sidney Powell, whom even Tucker Carlson deemed a liar. The motion for summary judgment filed by Dominion is chock full of evidence of everything I have said here and on radio for years, namely that certain media are operating as the equivalent of pro wrestling. Only Fox hid from their viewers that they knew it was fake. When Neil Cavuto cut away from a White House briefing from Kayleigh McEnany, when McEnany began making unsubstantiated allegations of fraud, Cavuto saying, "I can't in good countenance continue to show you this," a Fox executive deemed him a brand threat. The Fox motive, it was not ideology. It was not an allegiance to Donald Trump. It was greed, pure and simple. They created an audience they could no longer control, an audience that believed the garbage they were putting on the air, and they feared that they might lose that base to a competitor like Newsmax. In an email to Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott, Murdoch wrote that Newsmax needed to be, quote, watched, adding that he didn't want to, quote, antagonize Trump further, and stressing everything at stake here. And what might he have meant by everything? Well, despite the doomsdayers, the big three cable news networks earned an estimated $5.7 billion in advertising revenue and license fees in 2022, up 3% from the previous year. When Fox reporter Jackie Heinrich fact-checked a Trump tweet pointing out a lack of evidence of voter fraud, Tucker Carlson texted to Hannity, "Please get her fired." Seriously, what the F? I'm actually shocked. It needs to stop immediately. Like tonight, it's measurably hurting the company. The stock price is down, not a joke. By the way, last week, that same Tucker Carlson had the highest rated show on cable news with 3.5 million viewers. A Fox spokesperson has claimed that Dominion mischaracterized the record in its court filing and cherry-picked the quotes that were stripped of any key context. Regardless of the ultimate outcome of the defamation action, the evidence is a stunning indictment of the Fox brand. But here's a question. Will their audience ever know this? It's a real issue where so many live in media silos and don't listen or watch all sides. These revelations, they were huge news everywhere yesterday. Just look at all the headlines. Except on Fox, because they're not covering it. Remember to vote. This week's poll question at Smerconish.com right now, I'm asking the following. Will Fox News lose credibility with its viewers if those viewers learn that the network's hosts and executives knew the 2020 conspiracy theories were BS? Joining me now to discuss is Brian Rosenwald. He's a scholar in residence at the University of Pennsylvania. He's the author of Talk Radio's America, How an Industry Took Over a Political Party That Took Over the United States. Brian, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Is Fox News an outlier, or is this the norm in a polarized media world?
Michael, it is not an outlier at all. This is the norm for conservative media. As you and I have been telling people for years, this is a business. They care about the bottom line, and the one thing that they are worried about is losing their audience, alienating their viewers. And so here was a case where they really were concerned that if they told the truth, their audience was going to go find someone who told them what they wanted to hear.
Brian, this is not the 1990s. You know, they don't have the strangle. Russia's no longer here. I think this was just the 2-year anniversary of his passing. Fox doesn't have the stranglehold on conservatives that they did at one time. There's a lot of competition in the marketplace.
This is the key point, Michael. You know, in the 1990s, somebody who watched or listened to Rush or watched Fox in its early years probably was also watching the nightly news or CNN and consuming media like yourself. So they were not living in this hermetically sealed world of conservative media. Flash forward to now, and they have dozens of options in conservative media. And so what happens is every host is worried about getting outflanked. Every host is worried about hearing that, you know, what happened to you? You sold out. You know, I can't trust you anymore. Why? Because even if they don't throw out the craziest theories themselves, they know their audience is getting this stuff from somewhere. It could just be a video someone posted on Facebook. You know, we also have social media today. Or it could be from Breitbart or Newsmax or, you know, any show that you can think of. So the end result here is that they're all worried about getting outflanked. They're all worried about, you know, not being far enough to the right or not being far enough to hating Democrats. And this explained why conservative media came around on Donald Trump. In 2016, there were plenty of hosts who either ripped him as unfit or were never Trumpers, and gradually they all came around, you know, and the reason they did was because they realized they were going to lose their audience if they didn't. The few hosts who didn't, like Charlie Sykes in Milwaukee, they stopped being on conservative media because their audience evaporated.
I know that there's some watching, and I'll hear from them in the Twitterverse, I'm sure, who say, oh, why aren't you talking about your own network? Why aren't you talking about MSNBC? And I will be the first to acknowledge that polarization exists at both ends of the ideological spectrum. In this particular case, democracy was at stake. I mean, they were giving oxygen. They were giving oxygen to conspiracy theories that led to an attempted coup. And they knew it was bullshit. That's the difference.
I think you're 100% right. This is something that is toxic for democracy, that you have this medium that has a huge political impact, that, you know, these guys are willing to do or say anything to make money. That's the bottom line for this, that there is no line they will not cross if they think it's good for the bottom line. And the problem is they have an enormous political impact with worrying about the well-being of the country. They worry about making money, and yet they have a huge influence on the type of person who votes in a Republican primary, where 10% of people show up, which means that all of the Republican politicians are afraid of these guys. They're afraid of crossing them. And so as these guys go further and further to the right, they see Democrats as evil. They play out the soap opera. They know it's a business. They know that, you know, as you said, it's pro wrestling, but the politicians have to take them seriously. And that affects whether they're trying to address problems, from the mental health type crisis that you're talking about in your first segment to anything else under the sun. Politicians don't want to do anything that they think is going to anger these hosts.
Brian, answer my poll question. What I'm essentially wondering is whether this would matter to the Fox viewer if the Fox viewer even knew it was the case. Because, you know, in half the country, this has been the page one dominant story in the last two days in a very busy news week, but it doesn't get any airing at all in conservative media. Would that base care? Give me the quick answer.
Absolutely not. They'll just say it's media bias. They'll say, you and I are biased. We're distorting things. We're twisting things because we hate Fox.
Yeah, but I've got the document here. I mean, even if Dominion loses the defamation action, it is an actual malice case, so there's a high standard. But, you know, the sworn deposition testimony is what it is. The texts are what they are. The emails are what they are. Like, there's no getting around the fact that this is what happened. It's just a little frustrating that half the country probably doesn't even know that's the case. Anyway, thank you for being here as always. I always like to point out that Dr. Brian Rosenwald earned a PhD studying talk radio. Like, he's the expert. Catherine, what came in from the world of social